Tonight on Newshour, a fragile calm along one of the world's most volatile borders. Well, after more than a week of intense fighting that left dozens dead and hundreds injured, Afghanistan and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire. A deal brokered in Doha with support from Türkiye. Now, the clashes centred around the Chaman and Torkham crossings, key arteries for trade and daily movement. The violence was triggered by mutual accusations of cross-border shelling and the presence of militant groups allegedly operating on both sides. Islamabad blames the Afghan authorities for harbouring militants from the Taliban Pakistan, while Kabul accuses Pakistan of launching airstrikes inside its territory. With the border effectively closed for days, thousands of civilians were displaced and trade ground to a halt, prompting urgent mediation efforts. The truce, agreed late on the 19th of October, now aims to restore calm and reopen those vital crossings. But how durable is this agreement, particularly given the years of mistrust between these uneasy neighbours? Well, let's take a deeper look at the details.
Afghanistan and Pakistan said on Sunday they have agreed to an immediate ceasefire during talks in Doha. That's after a week of fierce border clashes, the worst violence between the South Asian neighbours since the Taliban seized power in Kabul in 2021. Pakistan's defence minister said on X the ceasefire, quote, has been finalised, and that both sides would meet again on October the 25th in Istanbul to discuss, quote, detailed matters. A Taliban spokesperson said in a statement the parties agreed on a complete and meaningful ceasefire. Afghanistan's defence chief was seen being welcomed to Doha ahead of Saturday's talks, with Qatar's foreign ministry acting as mediator along with Turkey. Pakistan and Afghanistan are seeking a way forward after the clashes killed dozens and wounded hundreds. The conflict was triggered after Islamabad demanded that Kabul rein in militants who had stepped up attacks in Pakistan, saying they operated from havens in Afghanistan. The Taliban denies giving havens to militants to attack Pakistan. It accuses the Pakistani military of spreading misinformation about Afghanistan and sheltering Islamic State-linked militants to undermine its stability and sovereignty. Islamabad denies the accusations. Militants have been waging a war for years against the Pakistani state in a bid to overthrow the government and replace it with their strict brand of Islamic governance. On Friday, a suicide attack near the border killed 7 Pakistani soldiers and wounded 13, security officials said. Reuters could not verify the data footage said to show the aftermath of the attack. The Taliban spokesperson said that at the Doha talks, quote, it was decided that neither country will take hostile action against the other.
OK, let's cross over now to our correspondent Tamim Bahis in Kabul for more on this. Tamim, good to see you. Give us a sense then of the situation on the ground, how it looks. You know, we've seen these recent clashes. We've seen the diplomatic role played by Qatar and Türkiye in brokering this truce. But how are both civilians and officials responding to what's seen as a really fragile ceasefire?
Yes, Guy. Here in Kabul, the feeling is mixed. Relieved that the guns have fallen silent, but also worried that it may not last. For many along the border, this is the first real calm they've experienced in days. Both governments have announced the ceasefire as a success, but people on the ground are waiting to see whether it holds. The clashes were intense and deadly. Villages near Spinboldak and Paktika were caught in the middle of cross-border shelling and airstrikes. Witnesses say entire market streets were destroyed, with dozens killed and many more injured. Trade came to a complete stop, and local drivers told us hundreds of trucks were stranded on both sides of the border. The fighting not only hurt families, but also cut off vital food supplies for border towns that depend on the daily flow of goods. The ceasefire was the result of tense talks in Doha, where Qatari officials brought Afghan and Pakistani representatives together. Türkiye also played a key part, acting as a go-between and helping calm both delegations. Afghan officials say Türkiye's role was especially important in convincing both sides to agree to announce the truce at the same time. Without that, they believe the fighting could have dragged on. Right now, there are plans to form a joint team to investigate any future clashes and keep communication open between border commanders. For now, no new violations have been reported, but troops remain in position. Here in Kabul, officials say they want peace, but continue to accuse Pakistan of violating Afghan airspace. Pakistan denies this, saying militants inside Afghanistan are to blame for attacks across the border. Ordinary Afghans tell us they're simply hoping this calm continues. Most analysts see this as a pause, not yet a breakthrough. But for families living along the border, even a pause feels like a victory. Back to you, Guy.
To Pakistan now, and to break this down further, Javid Rana, a political analyst, joins us from Islamabad. Mr. Rana, thank you very much for joining us. Give us the perception, the perspective then from Islamabad about what led to this sudden escalation.
I think there was a accumulated frustration with the government of Afghanistan by Pakistan. Reason being is that there have been frequent terrorist attacks on Pakistan military soldiers, and then you may recall that alone this year, more than 500 people were killed in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, which borders with Afghanistan, and among 500, more than 300 were the military soldiers. So that is just an indicator, that's just a tip of the iceberg of the scale of the terrorism which has been spreading in Pakistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. But I think giving the bigger picture, yes, Taliban, Afghan Taliban have been sheltering these TTP, these Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, it's a militant group which has been sheltered inside Afghanistan. That has been one of the leading sources. More particularly, the leadership has been there, and Pakistan has been calling Afghan government that this is a high time to rein them in, to make it sure that they do not manage this entire insurgency in Pakistan's northwestern and southwestern province. And the both provinces have been bordering with Afghanistan. And you already know it, that there is a 2,700-kilometer long zigzag porous border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So therefore, I think it is quite easier to make infiltration into Pakistan inside, and the vice versa. Now, you may recall that during the 20 years long insurgency in Afghanistan, when Americans were there, Pakistan was at the heart of the allegations that these militants are operating from Pakistan, and Pakistan was playing a double game. I think the fact of the matter is that Pakistan did support Afghan Taliban and did bring them into the path. I mean, they did facilitate that. Now, in Pakistan, there is a kind of a shock that a group which was supported by Pakistan, why it is not doing enough against the anti-Pakistan militants inside Afghanistan. My understanding of the situation is that the reason Afghan government has not been able to come down hard against anti-Pakistan militant is just simply because of the fact that Taliban government in Kabul fears that if they take action against TTP, the terrorist group, then they may join Daesh, so-called Islamic State IS, and that would be a destabilizing factor for the Afghan government. Afghan government has been cracking down Daesh for the last 4 or 5 years, and by and large, they have managed to rein in inside Afghanistan, and Afghan government has been blaming that the Daesh terrorists have bases inside Pakistani territory. I don't know what is the exact situation, because Pakistan has been obviously denying it, but there is a bigger game which is being played in the region. Who's playing whose game, that is a bigger question. But we have to also see the internal dynamics in Pakistan, something the Taliban government also accused, that there are few military generals in Pakistan who are behind these attacks. I think this is not so simple. The core reason is that there have been terrorist attacks from other side of the border, and the leadership of the terrorists is inside Afghanistan, and they've been managing this insurgency. But at the same time, having said that, there are also bitter facts on Pakistani side of the border. There is a kind of the terrain is such that it is easier for the terrorists to make a back and forth movement, and the entire border is not manned, and humanly it is not possible to man it. So every terrorist who have a back and forth movement on the border cannot be blamed against both government. But having said that, again, the bigger issue is that in the Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, ethnically speaking, religiously speaking, geographically speaking, they share everything. There are 17 tribes who have presence across the borders, and if their house is inside Pakistan, then there is possibility that the compound is on the Afghan side of the border, and if the house is inside on the Afghan side, then there is a school is maybe on Pakistani side of the border. So there is a interconnectivity. Both countries depend on each other, but at the same time, the other picture is that the people inside KP province.
I'm sorry to cut across you, but you, as you quite rightly say, there's so much complexity to this, isn't there? We know that Pakistan often cites military sanctuaries inside Afghanistan, but as you rightly point out, there's an awful lot of complexity. It's not just as simple as saying to Kabul, for goodness sake, crack down on your terrorists. That, you know, this is a state that has been, they would argue, working very, very hard, doing the painstaking tasks needed to win back international legitimacy, you know, move forward, organise, take care of their society over a relatively short period of time. Is there any understanding, any tolerance within Islamabad about how difficult that job really is for Kabul?
I think Islam options, there were some reports suggesting that Pakistan may go for some kind of a regime change operation inside Kabul. But again, the options are from bad to the worst. If they go for it, then there is a possibility that other groups like Northern Alliance, which has been hostile traditionally against Pakistan, that is not a good option. And Pakistan's arch rival India can exploit that situation. And in a similar fashion, if the government falls in Kabul, which I believe that Pakistan simply cannot do it, but nonetheless, if that kind of situation erupts, then there will be a kind of a civil war inside Afghanistan. And Pakistan, a country which has struggled so hard, played a allegedly double game to create conditions where Americans and the NATO don't stay inside Afghanistan, where Indians don't have their military footprint. I don't think that in any common sense they can risk to go for a regime change operation.
It's very interesting, Javad,
and again,
sorry to interrupt, but it's very interesting you say that, because if that stability is there, then is it really difficult for Pakistan to feel that Kabul is capable of truly honouring this ceasefire?
I believe that the Afghan government partially has a capacity to contain insurgency in Afghanistan. And that is because the leadership of anti-Pakistan groups, they can contain them, they can rein them in. Now the problem is that Tehrik-e-Taliban, Pakistan's militants, they have fought with the Afghan Taliban against the NATO forces. Therefore, because of that favor that Pakistani militant had extended, it is not that easy for them to actually rein them in. But we have to understand the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that the Afghan government looks like not fully willing to rein them in. Reason is that there is a kind of a misperception among all these groups that a 250 million populated Muslim Pakistan country is not perhaps fully Muslim, and if there is some kind of sport if Kabul simply simply doesn't do much on this, then there is a possibility that there may be a change inside Pakistan. I think whosoever thinks that, they are living in fool's paradise. In Pakistan, there is a hatred against anti-Pakistan militant groups who have been sheltered by the Afghan government, known as a TTP. But there is a bigger problem. The bigger problem is that there is also resentment against Pakistan military in the bordering region, because they have carried out as many as 22 military operations during last 25 years. It means 3 to 4 million people were internally displaced. It means that tens of thousands of people inside bordering regions, bordering provinces, they were killed. And that is why I think people in Pakistan's bordering provinces, they are not willing to accept any military operation by Pakistan. There have been huge collateral damages. Therefore, I think in the broader context, my understanding is that there may not be a resumption of hostilities in coming days and coming week at a scale which we have seen previously, but there is a possibility that Pakistan may resume some kind of airstrikes on the hideouts of the militants inside Afghanistan, but those would be limited. Now, Türkiye and Qatar have given some kind of guarantees that there would not be more attacks, and there is going to be kind of a mechanism which is going to be evolved during a meeting in next couple of days in Istanbul, that on how to make it sure that these terrorist attacks are not managed from Kabul and elsewhere from Afghanistan, and there is a relatively less scale of infiltration in Pakistan. If there is a 20% terrorist attacks, then I think that would be a situation which Pakistan may put up with.
Well, let's look forward, actually, as you say. Give us a sense of Islamabad's longer-term vision, then, for stabilising relations with Kabul, if that's possible.
I think Pakistan does want to have a stabilized relation with the government in Kabul, but at the same time, there is also a problem on Pakistani side of the border because there is no representative government. The government which is in place in Islamabad, I think it came out as a result of a rigged general elections. They were simply bogus election results. The party, mainstream political party of a jail leader Imran Khan, which had won with a 2/3 majority vote, that was deprived to form a government. Now that party of former Prime Minister Imran Khan is a hugely popular in the bordering region, more particularly. I think, and that government, provincial government, is not being allowed to function, and it doesn't have the kind of the support it needs to come down hard against terrorist groups. And there is also lack of cooperation between the military and the provincial government. That is also part of the problem. And the provincial government is not supporting the military operation. The reason being is that there is a strong resentment against the military because of the previous military operation. So in a broader context, I think as long as there is a representative government in Pakistan, I don't foresee any end to the terrorism incidents in Pakistan, because when military would call the shots, then because military doesn't understand the political issues in a manner that politicians can understand, I think that is also part of the reason. That is also a contributing factor, which has led to put Pakistan's relation with the Kabul in jeopardy. During the previous government, there was also talk about the negotiated settlement. I think some kind of a negotiated settlement could have been made, but the government of Imran Khan was derailed, overthrown apparently through a parliamentary vote, but obviously military was behind it. So I think Pakistan also needs to put its house in order. Let me also point it out that at least this year, there has been 10,000 intelligence-based military operations in Pakistan's bordering provinces against the terrorists. This is an indicator that these terrorists have the sleeper cells inside Pakistan, and Pakistan needs to do a lot on its side of the border as well. But the problem is that the terrorist leadership is inside Afghanistan and they are managing it. And Taliban Pakistan is not just one centralized group. There are dozens of factions, and some of the faction people in KP accused that they have some kind of a nexus with the security forces.
Mr. Rana, thank you very much indeed for that very thorough analysis. Joining us there from Islamabad, we thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's take a look at this from another angle now. I'm joined by Omer Anas, an assistant professor who specialises in Afghanistan at Ankara Yildirim Beyazıt University. Professor, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's just put these 2 points back to you then. We heard there, didn't we, 2 key points. One point being that an admission that Pakistan does need to work on putting its own house in order, but also the point that Mr. Rana made there was that he said Kabul is capable of dealing with its terrorists, but not willing to do so. What do you make of that?
Thank you very much for having me. I have a slight different observation from my previous friend. I think that there is a capacity deficit in Kabul. We have some over expectations that Kabul might be in position to control each and everyone in Afghanistan, but I think that there is a serious deficiency in Kabul, in Taliban's capacity to control each and every actor and militant group inside Afghanistan. That is one of the major issues which I think the Taliban are facing right now. At the same time, Taliban have also quite limited experience of having a balanced foreign policy. So I think that after 3 and 4 years, they have not yet found a functional template for foreign policy, and they have yet to find how to balance their relations with key neighboring countries, especially with Iran, Pakistan, and India. And in finding a balance between all these three key players, including Russia, of course, things are shifting in a way which are creating a sense of insecurity in Islamabad. And that is why I think that the mistrust in Islamabad is deepening and growing, and that is becoming a source of fight between their relations.
And let's just look in a bit more detail at this issue of sovereignty violation. Kabul insists that Pakistan violated Afghan sovereignty. What evidence supports that claim?
First of all, the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan is not that much clear and not much well guarded, even though Islamabad had indeed advanced its deployment and monitoring of the border, but it's still a bigger part of border is still not here. So both sides have the reasons to believe that there is sometime actions from Pakistani side, and there are some infiltration from Afghanistan side as well. So for that, I think that Pakistan might be working on a plan to fence the complete border and to increase some guard. And at the same time, Afghanistan has been for a long time a shelter or a center for multiple dozens of non-state. So we should safely say that all of the non-state actors have not just disappeared with the arrival of Taliban. What Taliban have to do is to offer many of these non-state actors a kind of new assurance that they are going to get a fair deal in their rule in Afghanistan. I think that Taliban are still adamant to share power within different Afghan actors, and that is creating a kind of a balance which I think that Islamabad is looking for, and that is why the story of regime change in Kabul is circulating, because Iran and Pakistan and some other countries, they feel that Afghanistan and Taliban, they are not representing the entire society of Afghanistan, and that is where they feel left out from the existing model.
Okay, let's talk a bit more about that society and the relationship between them and the government now. How is the government managing public anger after these clashes?
I think that Taliban are facing a tremendous pressure from inside, and especially from the forces which are anti, and they are using this as an evidence against Taliban that look, Taliban cannot protect the country against Pakistan, and especially the Northern Alliance, and most of the anti-Taliban forces, they are using it as a evidence against Taliban. However, given the fact that Taliban have managed some sort of normalcy and public safety in Kabul and other districts of Afghanistan, there is a relatively peace and stability inside Afghanistan. So a large number of Afghan society is satisfied with the performance of in terms of law and order situation. So I don't think that this public anger is going to be very destabilizing factor against the Taliban right now. However, if this violation or this war happens again, and the tension between Pakistan and Afghanistan, if it increases again, then it could be a bigger threat to Taliban's stability, the regime's stability, and there could be some sort of conflict within the Taliban regime and within the factions which are against Taliban, which can eventually destabilize Kabul.
And how does the Taliban leadership view this ceasefire then? Is it one united position, or are there different views? Do they see it as a step forward in terms of dialogue, or merely just a pause in hostilities?
I'm not sure whether Taliban have a complete idea how they are going to deal with Pakistan, because their relation with Pakistan have been quite different. They have been living in Pakistan, so they know the society in Pakistan, they know the state actors in Pakistan, they know the Pakistani military. So they are not in confusion at all about the Pakistan's capacity to act against any such perceived or real threats. However, their lack of experience as a state actor is coming as a major problem, and I think that this is something which Taliban have no idea how they are going to deal with. And in this way, some of the factions within Taliban, they are very much in favor to have normal and good relations with Pakistan, and of course with other countries. However, the Taliban is getting more and more centralized, and the other factions which were considered close to Pakistan are gradually losing their position within the Taliban movement. As a result, Taliban's ability to act together and to work in tandem with all other factions within Taliban is still limited. That is where the crisis is coming from. And I think that Pakistani side is fully aware of Taliban's lack of experience and their capacity deficiency. And that is where Pakistan is exploiting the situation and putting a lot of pressure on Taliban so that they can come for a workable compromise.
And has Pakistan given any assurance to Kabul in terms of making sure that there are no further airstrikes?
Are not going to give any kind of such assurances, because as of now, Pakistani military and Pakistani society, they have got a lot of increasing anti-Afghan sentiments because of the last some of the terrorist attacks inside Pakistan, and there is a growing sense within Pakistan that the Taliban might have deserted Pakistan, might have betrayed. Sense of betrayal is also coming there, because many of Pakistanis, they say that they had protected Taliban, they have given them shelter in their difficult time, and now the Taliban are betraying, and there is a growing perceived understanding that Taliban are inching closer to New Delhi, a rival of India, of Pakistan. So this is also a growing sense which is overwhelming Pakistan opinion. And as a result, I think that there is a lot of political pressure inside Pakistan to act against such threats, and as a result, Pakistan might be in position to such attacks, and the military conflicts are going to be there again if there is some unfortunate situation once again. However, in position of Taliban, Talibans are very much in position to speak with Pakistan and to reach out Pakistan to find a solution. And Doha agreement, in my understanding, is going to work and provide some sort of stability for some time. And if the dialogue continues, and as they have already planned another round of dialogue in Istanbul, I think that there is a possibility to find a solution, and a long-term solution, of course, if they want. I think that there is a possibility of finding a chance for peace.
A chance for peace, if, as they say, if they want. Professor Anas, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your analysis. Thank you. For now then, the ceasefire holds, but peace remains fragile. Both sides have pledged restraint, yet deep mistrust continues to shadow the border. The next round of talks in Istanbul, supported by Türkiye, will test whether this truce can move beyond words into lasting stability. Well, that is all for this edition of News Hour from all of us here at A News. Thanks for being with us.